Hello, I'm James Eade, and I'm here to roar a little bit. It's about my sense that people are being too quiet, too accepting, even a little paranoid about speaking up. If they want to say something, they might get consequences. People might come and take them away, as they used to say in the Buffalo Springfield song, for what it's worth. But that was about the 60s. And here it is, 2020s, and we're still afraid. I don't understand this quite. This isn't what I thought we were talking about all those years ago in giving ourselves the right to speak. And so a little bit about me. I published 8 books. The one that's been a bestseller is Just for Dummies. And one of the things that happened was that I bent my knee to the tyranny of addiction, and I almost knocked myself out. But and when I recovered from addiction, I found that people said, "Don't talk about it. Be quiet about it." And people thought I should be ashamed of it. And I have found that I like to speak out about it. And I don't. My last book was called "No Blame, No Shame." It's just me that I have that did what I did, and I suffered the consequences, and now I'm free, and I have no shame. And I find out that telling my story seems to help others. And when others get a little bit of joy back in their lives, I feel like I have made a contribution. So I want people to be able to raise their voice and be able to speak up, speak out, especially in order to preserve our democracy. And in my recovery, this is me on Times Square. This is me in Las Vegas getting an award. So you can do it too. Everyone has a chance to recover. Now, about speaking up in this society right now, I've asked Rick Rosner to come on and help me discuss what's going on, why are we afraid, and can we speak up without fear or favor? Rick, how are you
Hey,
today?
good. How are you?
I'm doing all right. Yeah, I'm ready to roar. So what should I roar about? What's the most thing
Well,
that
I would suggest this that uh, Elon, 2, 3 years ago, Elon Musk bought Twitter. Twitter used to be fun.
right?
I used to follow hundreds of comedians on Twitter and read hundreds of jokes a day. Uh,
Uh-huh.
he bought Twitter, turned it into X, brought back tens of thousands of people who'd been kicked off of Twitter for sharing hate and misinformation, and chased all the decent people away. But I'm still there, maybe because I'm not decent, but real, I don't want to set up shop anyplace else. It's a miserable place now. But I would suggest that people, if you're interested in what can and can't be said in public discourse now, I suggest going on X and just reading what people say, and it'll give you an idea of how people are talking, what they're talking about. There's a thing called the Overton window. The
The
Overton
Overton.
window is the range of acceptable discourse.
Ah,
Um,
I know this. Yes. Okay.
so let's take, for example, something that is still outside the window. Now, conservatives like to shift the window to the right by saying outrageous stuff, but you still can't say without getting in trouble that say Hitler was right to persecute the Jews. If you maybe could say that on, if you said that on X, if you just said exactly what I said, um, people could report you. Now it would be a crapshoot as to whether Twitter would the Twitter used to have dozens, maybe hundreds of people who would read people's tweets, and if they were saying stuff that was unacceptable, they could impose penalties. Now they have many few. They're the staff must
Cost cutting.
fire most of those people.
Right.
So could you say that Hitler was right in persecuting the Jews if you use that language? I think you could get away with it. Not that it's acceptable that you do, but under the current conditions there, you could probably say it. Now, if you used worse language, if you used a slur against the Jews, if you put up anti-Semitic images, if you use the N-word on X, you will get in trouble. So people have ways to get around it. They will misspell the N-word. They will replace the I in the N-word with an exclamation point. The governance of X is easy to fool. It's part of what makes X miserable now. But to understand what the discourse is, you need to go where people, many of them jackasses, are saying stuff.
Interesting. Okay, so because of my lack of motivation to go onto a social media platform and find out what people are saying, I've been basing my observations on the repercussions some people have experienced. I think Senator Mark Kelly, it comes to mind, people that speak out and they get criminal prosecution or some sort of DOJ activity. And so I think that's where I'm really coming from in terms of, it's like people speaking their mind and telling people what they think is really going on in terms of politics in this country.
Can we talk about the specifics of Mark Kelly?
Sure.
So Mark Kelly is a senator. He ran for the Senate after his wife, who was a senator, got shot in the head in a mass shooting. She lived, but with brain damage.
Right.
And he decided to take up her mantle. Mark Kelly is kind of he's a military hero. He flew 39, he's a fighter pilot.
Right.
He flew 39 missions in various military actions. He's an astronaut. He went into space 4 times, spending a total of 54 days in space. Yeah. He's probably a major, I think, I don't know, captain, major.
Yeah, I've seen him in uniform, and it's I would say colonel or major or something like that, but I don't know for sure.
He and 5 other members of Congress, all of them with military or intelligence backgrounds, put out, I believe, a video saying, hey, if you're in the military, you are not obligated to follow unlawful orders.
Right.
Like if your commanding officer commands you to open fire on American civilians, that's an unlawful order. Right. And so they made this video. And Pete Hegseth, who's the current Secretary of War, accused him pretty much of treason. Even though Hegseth, when he was just a civilian spokesperson, made speeches, or maybe he was in the military reserve at the time, but was a guy on Fox. He made speeches or statements where, you saying that you shouldn't follow illegal orders, unlawful orders.
Yeah, but kind of common sense back in the day. Yeah.
Yeah, but now, 10 years later, that he's Trump's secretary, he is persecuting and prosecuting Kelly and others for saying something that is true under the uniform code of, military justice or whatever. You're not supposed to follow unlawful orders. But saying it got Mark Kelly in trouble, and his pension, he was in the military for probably 25 years, has been stripped, which is horseshit. And I assume once we have a president who's not an asshole back in office, that it'll be restored. But plus, Mark Kelly will get by just fine. As a senator, he'll get he'll get a Senate pension. But anyway, the whole thing is obnoxious and disgusting.
And so petty, taking away his pension. It's because they can do it. They do it. It's not because it's.
Can they really do it? He's taking him to court, as he should, but it's a distraction, and his legal costs, could easily run $80,000.
Right, for saying what everybody thought was the truth, and even the person that's in charge of of war now who used to be a Fox news person. I guess Trump liked what the guy said on Fox, and so he put him in charge.
There are roughly 24 members of Trump's administration who used to be on Fox.
Yeah. Isn't that amazing? That's just because that's what he listened to, that's what he liked, and that's now those are handpicked people to be in charge of whatever. And this is the it would be comical if it wasn't so serious. Putting incompetence in charge, it didn't really matter so much if you had a Democratic or Republican president, as long as they had competent people in the jobs that they were supposed to be doing. And they usually had professionals in those jobs, people who had been, trained in the field that they were responsible for, knew it intimately. And now when you put amateurs in charge, you suffer the consequences.
Yeah, you don't have to be very few presidents have been geniuses. Teddy Roosevelt, you could make a case for Bill Clinton, who was a Rhodes Scholar.
Certainly, Rhodes Scholar, right?
Above
average intelligence, many, but
a lot of presidents are in like a sweet spot of middling high intelligence.
Yeah. Okay.
They made it into an Ivy League school. They got a law degree.
Yeah.
But,
Obama was a constitutional scholar, for example.
Yeah, but
I don't think he would think of himself as a genius.
Right.
But,
Reagan, not a genius,
no.
but picked a very effective cabinet. You don't have to like what Reagan did, and I don't like a lot of what Reagan did, but he had
professionals.
He had a very effective presidency in achieving a lot of his objectives, right, because he picked a competent cabinet.
Yeah, and one of the more intelligent presidents was Jimmy Carter, and he did not pick a strong cabinet, and that was one of the weaknesses of his administration.
Yeah, because Carter was a nuclear engineer.
Yeah, he was extremely intelligent and probably had the best post-presidency of anyone that ever held a position. A great man in many ways, but he was a Washington outsider. He didn't know anybody who knew all the stuff, the inside things,
and
how to get things done in Washington.
Hurt his presidency, and he was bad at dealing with the media too. Like he thought he could tell Americans to maybe turn down their thermostat, be a little cold in the winter to save on fuel. He gave a speech from the Oval Office sitting at his desk wearing a sweater. People made fun of him. And by the end of his presidency, he got made fun of stuff that was so ridiculous. Like he ran a 5K and I think had to drop out because he had hemorrhoids. People made fun of him for that. The craziest thing he got made fun of, he was out on a boat and just, I don't know, fishing or doing something. He had his arm in the water. A swimming rabbit, some kind of aquatic rabbit, swam up to him and bit his hand.
Yeah, I remember this. Yeah,
that spoke to America as just a general ineptitude on the part of the president.
I do remember that. It was endless. People were going around and poor guy. Yeah, because let me stop for just a second, because scrolling across the bottom of your screen is airu.tv. That's the website you can go to see this show and previous shows and other shows that we've done in the past. And if you want to write to us, info@airu.tv is the way to do that. And you can tell us that you agree with us or you disagree with us, or tell us what you're particularly upset about and want to roar about, but don't find you have a voice. And we'll give you a chance to have your voice.
All right. So I want to talk about, mention some people who have been speaking out and causing controversies. Well, there's a related controversy because they're happening at the same time. This is Tuesday after the Super Bowl, and there were battling Super Bowl halftime shows with Bad Bunny getting 140 million views as part of the main Super Bowl broadcast, and then Kid Rock being part of a Turning Point USA, which is Charlie Kirk's organization. TPUSA had an alternate for people who were offended by Bad Bunny, having a Spanish language halftime show, and they pulled between 5 million and, I don't know, let's say 10 million on various, streaming, services. So anyway, there was that's one form of speaking out. Bad Bunny, people were saying, why are you, this is like some conspiracy but Bad Bunny is the most popular musical artist in the world right now. In 2025, he was streamed almost 20 billion times, beating Taylor Swift for 2025. And he put on an entertaining show. Yeah, I didn't understand.
Yeah. And I thought the message is, from what I could understand, because I don't speak Spanish, but from what I can understand, it was a unifying message. It wasn't an outrageous, performance.
But the logistics, the what they pulled off to do live,
the value was elite. Yeah.
Like at one point, he's standing in like on top of a fake strip mall they built in the middle of the Super Bowl field.
Yeah.
It's like kind of looks like it's it would be a strip mall in Puerto Rico, and he's dancing on the roof, and he crashes through the roof,
right,
and into the living room of a family, and keeps singing there, and to pull that off, live. Anyway, it was. I was reasonably entertained.
Yeah.
So people had all sorts of theories that the NFL has given up on America. Really, the theory that I buy is the NFL, owns American viewers. They want the world to get into football. So there are I guess probably a couple billion Spanish speakers in the world, and if this would help them. The NFL plays I don't know 3-4 half a dozen games in London every year, and maybe games in Mexico City.
They're going to expand into France, yeah, right. It's
so they're trying to extend their brand because they own America, but anyway, so that's one place where speaking out is tied to sports. Another place is the Winter Olympics are going on right now, and some of the, everybody has to have a press conference all the time. So, after their performances, the athletes take questions from the press.
Right.
And some of the questions are probably political, or sometimes some of the athletes speak out so I saw the medal ceremony for team skating. The fancy skating, with the flips and all that. And there were 7 athletes on the podium. The U.S. took gold in this category. And they're playing the national anthem. And they've all got their hands on their hearts. And 3 out of 7 are crying. And they obviously love America. But these are, at least 2 of them were people who said a couple things about what they don't love about America right now during press conferences in a couple days before, and they were torn. If you go on X, which is, like I said, a miserable experience, but informs you as to what the dimensions of the bullshit debate going. People were saying, "Oh, if you're going to criticize the U.S., we have plenty of athletes who won't do that. They should be sent home. They shouldn't be allowed to compete." Which I'm happy they're speaking out. I like people. My favorite people are people who love America, love what are supposed to be American values, and speak out with criticisms of America. Some of my favorite people are Republicans who don't like Trump. Like Caitlin Collins is a CNN anchor who's she's very likable because she's young, she's ridiculously pretty, and she holds Trump to account. She'll ask him questions, and he'll give her a bunch of shit. Like he's like, I've known you for 10 years. Why do you never smile? You never smile. You're a terrible reporter. And she just sits there and she holds her ground. But Caitlin Collins is a Republican. Her career began as she was the entertainment reporter at the Daily Caller, which is kind of a scurrilous right-wing news site. A site, if you went there and you read their coverage, you, as a liberal, you would be pissed off. That's where she started. And so she's not like some crazy lib. She's Republican. I believe her boyfriend is a Republican politician down in Texas or some shit. I might have part of that wrong, but like she's no freaking bleeding heart lib. And like Joe Walsh, a former Republican member of the House of Representatives, is a guy who saw the light, now like is against Trump. Rick Wilson, a Republican political strategist. I'm sure he came up with a bunch of campaigns that probably totally pissed me off as a lib, but he is a never Trumper. I love Republicans who think Trump sucks.
Yeah. And there's a growing number of them, I think, but there's always going to be that solid base.
But the base gets stupider and crazier every day, because every day hundreds or thousands of people leave the base. They've finally had enough. And these are the smarter, more reasonable members of remaining in the base. You strip that, every time you strip those people away, what's left is dumber and loonier. But anyway, I like people who love America, and Republicans love America, but who are not afraid to be reasonable and speak out when they see bullshit. And it's the same with our Olympic athletes. They've got, they can make points. And another criticism of
roar. Yeah, they got their microphone in front of their face.
A criticism of celebrities, beyond just sports celebrities, is that they should shut up and act. When a Matt Damon says something, or frickin' Clooney says something, people are like, you're just a dumb frickin' actor. The deal is they're not dumb, and actors, especially like super prominent ones, are often better informed than your average dumb shit on the street, because
Ronald Reagan was an actor.
But like they have assistants, they meet a ton of people. If Matt Damon wants to meet with AOC or Marjorie Taylor Greene, he has his people make a phone call. He can sit down with whomever. Frickin' Kevin Costner, and also they have time. They have the staff. They have, if Kevin Costner wants to make a TV show, he makes a few calls, and he sits down. He makes pitches, and it happens because Kevin Costner has a ton of juice, right? But he's got a lot of time. He has people who help him facilitate stuff. If he wants to learn stuff, if he's invited to speak about something, then he and his assistants will make sure he knows what he's talking about. And remember during the BP oil spill?
Yes.
There was a ton of oil in the Gulf of Mexico. Kevin Costner invented a centrifugal oil sucker upper. Kevin Costner figured out that you could spin oil out of if you took a tube and sunk it into the oil, and then you spun the tube so the tube bends like 90 degrees. You've got a tube sucking up oil, and then you spin the tube, the oil comes up, and the centrifugal effect of the oil in the spinny part of the tube, it spits out the oil, and so he made this invention, and it works. And did it work better than every other way of getting the oil out of the Gulf of Mexico? I don't know, but he had the wherewithal and the concern to come up with a way of. So anyway, these when if Clooney wants to learn stuff, so he doesn't sound like a dumb shit, Clooney will learn stuff.
Right.
And so I think that also there's a shakeout. Like I live in LA, and I see the people who come out here to be actors because they're driving confusedly in cars with out-of-state license plates.
Right.
And I'm like, get the hell out of my way. They were the most talented person at their high school in Georgia. They came out here to make it. And they either learn the ropes. You've only got 3 months to get California plates on your car, or you can get a ticket. So that they last here long enough, they start to make it, or they get chased away with their tail between their legs. I came out here when I was 20 to try to sell some ideas. I lasted, I don't know, 3 weeks, and then didn't make it out here again until I was 29. But anyway, the people who last are the smart. You don't have to be smart to be an actor. You can be beautiful, but beautiful is a dime a dozen. Really, your chances of succeeding are much higher if you're smart. And so the smart people over the decades, if you've managed to last out here in entertainment into your 40s, you're probably smart.
Yeah, you figured the system out.
Yeah, which means that, a Clooney is freaking smart. Clooney also comes from a political background. His dad was a political candidate numerous times. Clooney knows stuff. So like that criticism that celebrities should shut the fuck up is a bullshit criticism.
Of course. And the other thing is, I think people don't understand, either weren't taught or have forgotten the history of what it means to be a citizen of the United States. The founding fathers expected the citizens to hold the government accountable, to criticize it, to be able to take action and to be able to affect change in the government. The citizens were the check and part of the checks and balances. Ultimately, an informed citizenry was the final check. And Ben Franklin, speaking of the founding fathers, he said that if you place security over liberty, you deserve neither. And so what we're doing is being frightened, and we're giving up our rights. And when you empower the DOJ to attack citizens, even American heroes like Mark Kelly, it reminds me of Trump putting down McCain because he was captured in Vietnam, tortured, and sustained it, and came back and ran for office and was about service to his country. And this man Trump was putting him down for being captured. And so these types of people who have given to service to this country with more than the average Joe could ever claim, these people are subject to a Department of Justice that has been weaponized. And so if he has a petty grief against someone, they are under threat.
Look, with McCain, didn't McCain, he couldn't move his arms in certain ways because when he was held prisoner, they'd hang him from they kind of, those cartoons where they show somebody in a dungeon hanging from his wrists. That was McCain. They hung him for days and weeks and months, and they permanently damaged his.
He couldn't raise his shoulder or his arm because of his shoulder, and but in any case, this is part of why people are afraid. People who have the ability to speak up and to affect change in our government are now hiding. Now, it used to be that the part of the Republican Party was so scared they were afraid of getting primaried. But now it looks as though people are finding out that if Trump endorses you, it may be not a plus, but a minus. And more and more. Go ahead.
An early indicator of how bad it is going to go for a party in this case, the Republicans, is how many people are retiring from Congress rather than running for re-election, or they're running for something else like governor. So we are up to 51 representatives, 31 of them Republican, or 30 of them Republican, 20 of them Dems, 12 senators not running for re-election, which is more than 10% of the 535 members of Congress. And that's not an all-time high, but it's close, and it's still only February. More people can decide.
It sounds like a lot to me, because it's a pretty good job, and
so right now the Republicans have a 4-member margin, 218 to 214 in the House, and so they can only lose 2 or 1, and they're on track based on Trump's approval of 41%. They're on track to lose 28 seats. So it's almost certain that the Republicans will lose the House, and now the Senate is even in play. But you were talking about, voices being taken away, or the Washington Post has been castrated. So a few years ago, Jeff Bezos bought the Washington Post. In the past couple weeks, he has fired 1/3 of all the reporters on the Post and gotten rid of their publisher, I believe, who was brought in to make the Post run more efficiently and also clean house. That guy, the staff had finally had enough of him. So the Post, one of the 2 great papers of the U.S.,
the Woodward and Bernstein Post,
the Post that took down Nixon, that did the hard research, detective work to uncover Watergate and take down Nixon. That paper is now smushed out of deference to Trump, because Bezos is one of the billionaires who kisses Trump's ass.
Knows
the LA Times. So the 2 greatest papers in the U.S. were the New York Times, Washington Post. The Washington Post has now had its ass kicked. The LA Times used to be a great paper.
Yeah.
Now it is owned by a right-leaning billionaire, and it's been stripped. Now, part of it is economics. It's hard to make a newspaper make a profit these days.
Right. Yeah,
but also, if you're a billionaire, maybe you shouldn't give that much of a shit about if you're going to buy a paper, maybe you shouldn't care if it makes a profit.
Well, that we'll never know what motivates certain people and why they do certain things, especially when we're talking about people who have the power of purchasing the paper and giving it its voice. Rupert Murdoch certainly used a lot of influence and buying media outlets and getting his point of view across. So these types of things are the stifling of counter arguments to whatever the government is. This is what we associate with autocratic regimes, that dissent is not tolerated. And so you can't dissent with Putin in Russia, for example. And so squashing dissent seems to me the first, one of the first steps in living in a land of tyranny. And one of the reasons we want migrants to come into this country is because they have suffered tyranny and they can tell us what it's like. And, because we have grown up without it, we don't recognize the signs of it coming. And we think that democracy is here to stay. And we don't realize that around the world, throughout history, democracy has been fairly fragile. And it's only the people who are able to voice their concerns when it's threatened that are last guard against the loss of your rights, your liberties.
So let's talk about demographics. So the right, the Trumpers, are convinced that tens of millions of immigrants flood into the United States, and they take away all our stuff, our housing, our jobs. They make the streets unsafe. They eat our dogs and cats. They commit daycare fraud. Demographically, the U.S. has the lowest growth rate in its entire history. So over the past couple of years, we've had years where our growth rate was less than 0.5% a year. We only make, through people hooking up, Americans getting together, having sex, making babies, we only make 80% of the number of babies we need to keep the population stable if it weren't for immigration. There are various reasons why. One thing is microplastics get in everybody's bodies, and they lower testosterone levels. So also social media. We're so, Gen Z is so locked in to their phones and such that they've lost the social skills and the social impetus to go out and try to hook up as much as previous generations did. Gen Z will stay home and jerk off, or because of low testosterone, they won't even do that. So it's not like the U.S. is being flooded. The right says we're being flooded. We're not. Our population doesn't change much by a million or two per year out of an overall population of 345 million. Right. The U.S., like the right will say that we're being flooded with Muslims. The U.S. has between 1 and 1.3% Muslims. That is between 3 and 4 million Muslims out of an overall population, 100 times that. Compared to Europe, where they do have a ton of Muslims. Frickin' England, Germany are like 10% Muslim. And I've been to our kid is in England. My wife and I go to England. London is a great place. Okay, you'll see people,
London is a metropolitan city. Yes.
You'll see people wearing headscarves and stuff because they're Muslim. You don't get a bad vibe off of them. They're not, for the most part, they are not trying to destroy England. Now, there have been issues with Pakistani rape gangs in certain cities. Yeah, those guys are bad. But overall, the people are, but anyway, we have, Muslims are not flooding the U.S. Immigrants are not flooding the freaking U.S. And if they are, they're not taking your house away. The median cost of a house in California is, $1,000 a square foot. If you want a small house in LA, 1,000 square foot house, it'll cost you $1 million. The guy who's working, or the woman who's working, getting paid under the table because she's an illegal, sewing clothes downtown for maybe $7 an hour under the table. The guy who's working construction for $12 an hour under the table. These people are not buying $1 million.
Right. Yeah. To emphasize your point, I just saw that in the town that I live in, the average price and the homes only stayed on for the average for how long they stayed on the market was 30 days. And the average sale price was $3.5 million. So yeah, people coming over from different countries are not purchasing those homes unless they bring with them extraordinary wealth as well. And those
there are people, who, the people from China, like China is like the world's manufacturing powerhouse right now. They have 150 cities in China that each have more than 1 million people in them. And in each of these cities, they're making a shit ton of stuff, and the people who run the factories are making a ton of money. And yeah, they will send their kids over to the US, and those kids might buy a $2 million house, right. But those how many family, anyway, that's
Yeah.
not your
But it's
typical.
part of the big lie that has been so easily, because if it's repeated, like if you listen to one channel and you hear the same thing repeated every hour on different show after different show, and the repetition is there, you take it as gospel, you take it as the truth. And even the gospels were rewritten and edited, and who knows what's in them from where. But these things are taken as though they have been blessed somehow. And if you challenge them, there is outrage on their part, because you can't say that what I just said about the Gospels, although it's commonly understood that the people that wrote the Gospels didn't live at the time of Jesus, and they were rewritten by other Christians and throughout the centuries. And what we have now, who knows who wrote them and how they were changed. And so this kind of thing, you have to be a certain amount of you have to be open-minded to looking at the facts of the matter and weighing them and seeing what you think
Yeah,
is
who got in a lot of trouble for being a loudmouth is frickin' Jesus. I believe he was killed for being too mouthy, right?
He was a radical rabbi. Yeah, he was in danger.
But I want to go back to so we're being mean to immigrants in the U.S. right now. We're trying to kick out a bunch of them. Now, Trump isn't even that. Obama was the most effective deporter of immigrants of anybody in history. More people
wildly underreported, but yes, I agree with you. That seems to be the fact.
But anyway, we're trying to deport a ton of people. Is that helping America? Is it reducing prices at the grocery store? Is it creating jobs? Now,
No.
Trump's jobs guy said, yeah, the jobs numbers are a little low, but it's because we're kicking out so many people, which is bullshit. Right now, January's job number looks like it's going to come in at 22,000 jobs created, which is an annual rate of just over 250,000. That is shitty. That is 1/8 or less the annual rate of job creation of every year from 2011 through 2024, not including the COVID year of 2020 when we lost a ton of jobs. But in most years, in every year, we created at least 2.1 million jobs. Coming back from COVID, the first couple of years of Biden, we created 6-7 million jobs a year. These were jobs that had been lost under COVID a lot. But anyway, we were creating a shit ton of jobs. The number of jobs we're creating now is 75 to 90% lower than we've been creating over the past 20 years. We might be looking at the worst job creation year since 2003.
No
but
job.
Yeah,
more people looking for them too. And people graduating from college or high school and looking for how to get started in the world.
Yeah, college becomes less. The shittier the job market is, the less valuable college becomes. Between 2010 and 2022, college enrollment in the U.S. declined by 15%. And most of the decline was among men and boys.
Right.
The colleges, I think, are now 60-40 women. So guys should go to college just to get laid. It's where the women are. But yeah, guys are getting
left. They care about that sort of thing anymore.
Well, that's the only thing I cared about from the age of 10 on. I remember being 9.5 and being like, I was already horny because, I stayed inside at recess and I read, and I ended up reading some sexy stuff. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm a nerdy 9.5-year-old. I will have to wait forever to get laid. And indeed, I did. It was going to be another more than 10 years before I lost my virginity. And but that was my main focus for, from 10 until, I met my wife.
Yeah. I guess when you let's see if I can pull this up quickly. If you look, this is you at senior in high school. You're not getting a lot of dates.
No, I should pull a. Oh, yeah.
I was the best chess player in all of New England in high school, but I mean, high school chess player in all of New England. But that wasn't.
You wanted to talk about nukes.
Oh yes, thank you for reminding me because we are starting to get close to the end of the show, and I did want to think that there was an end of the the nuclear proliferation agreements between Russia and the United States, and there was, and I might have been having my paws over my ears and my eyes closed. So, but didn't I see something about Trump starting up nuclear testing again? Uh, Did I read?
Yeah, and which is ridiculous. Okay, so Trump says he's not going to set off nuclear bombs, but he's going to test, I don't know, stuff to make sure that our nuclear weapons still work, which kind of makes sense. But our nuclear, we have an arsenal of roughly 1,700 warheads. Depending on how you classify them, whether they're ready to launch or not, the numbers are different. But the number I use is that we have and Russia has, we each have about 1,700 warheads, nuclear bombs that are ready to go, that are launch ready. I believe that's probably not right because we don't deploy them. The world would end if we did. So they probably get crappy. They probably decay over time. Now the nuclear technology, the basics are really simple. So you don't need a lot of nuclear testing we've done a lot of nuclear testing. Russia's done a lot of nuclear testing. The principle of nuclear weapons is you get enough radioactive shit, uranium. Now, uranium comes in two flavors, explodey and less explodey, depending on how many neutrons are in the nucleus. You strip away a few neutrons and the nucleus gets more exploding. So you put a bunch of your exploding, if you take two clumps of uranium, the explodey kind, and you smush them together with conventional explosives, then that uranium, the neutrons that are, when a uranium atom nucleus splits, it releases some neutrons. And then that neutron crashes into other nuclei and breaks them apart. And the idea is you want every nucleus in this clump of uranium to break apart within, a few 10,000ths of a second. And that gives you your bomb. That's uranium. Plutonium, same deal.
Energy. Yeah.
It's simple. You just take one clump of uranium and you shoot another clump at it to get critical mass, and you get a horrible explosion. Plutonium, similar. You take a sphere of plutonium and then you put a bunch of explosives around it. You set off the conventional explosives. The clump of uranium collapses, gets all tight and dense. In the middle, you've got beryllium or paraffin or some other stuff that amplifies the number of neutrons that are able to hit so all the plutonium nuclei break apart and you get a horrible explosion. Those are nuclear weapons.
You're creating a singularity that results in a big bang.
Yeah, but it's conceptually simple. Yeah. And we don't need to do a lot of testing. We know how it works. But then those are our small nukes. Those are the size of nukes that nuked Hiroshima and Nagasaki, like 50 kilotons. And again, they can kill 100,000 people. Then you have hydrogen bombs. Hydrogen bombs are where you take one of your uranium bombs or plutonium, and you use that to light up a bunch of hydrogen or do heavy hydrogen and fuse it into helium all these reactions release energy. About 0.1% of the mass is turned into energy, which is bad if you don't want to die. Because with a hydrogen bomb, which is really it's 3 explosions. Conventional explosions triggers a fission reaction, an atomic bomb. The atomic bomb sets off a hydrogen fusion bomb, and that's in the megatons. A hydrogen bomb can be 1,000 times more powerful. So where a fission bomb can kill 100,000, a hydrogen bomb can kill 8 million at once.
And the aftertaste can also be deadly, toxic, and what it does to the air. Yes.
So anyway, this article says that right now we have 50,000 people, 50,000 Americans working on our nuclear weapons right now. And we're spending, I don't know, like 100 billion. We're building new plants to build new nuclear triggers. The spheres of plutonium with the amplifiers in the middle. We've got new factories at Los Alamos, in South Carolina, in Tennessee. We are spending a ton of money on this stuff. And yeah, we don't want another arms race, but there's nobody in a position to really effectively negotiate now, because Trump is a mess. Putin is a war criminal. Now, maybe, I don't know, maybe a miracle could happen, because it would, there's the Journal of Nuclear Scientists, of Atomic Scientists, has this countdown to oblivion clock, countdown to doomsday, where they say, I think it started at 8 minutes to midnight 60 years ago, 70 years ago. Now it's 1 minute and 25 seconds to midnight. That it's their estimate of how close we are to being doomed to disaster, and either nuclear, and now lately they've thrown in climate disaster. And climate disaster can contribute to the chance of nuclear disaster, because climate change can cause hundreds of millions of people to have to move out of where they are, which can cause wars and strife, and universal unrest can give the whole world a hair trigger.
Right.
There's a book called Nuclear War by Annie Jacobsen, which shows how the whole world could be destroyed by Kim Jong-un, one lunatic setting off one nuke, which leads to overreactions on the part of the US and then Russia.
A chain reaction, we might say. Yes.
Yeah, because one problem is that our tech, it takes like 20 minutes for a nuke to fly from North Korea or Russia to the US. And in that time, we can't necessarily determine for sure whether the nuke came from, given the trajectory, whether it came from, North Korea or Russia. Being nuked by North Korea is much less problematic than being nuked by Russia, because Russia has 1,700 of them. Right. North Korea has, I don't know, a couple dozen maybe of and they don't always work right when they run tests.
Right.
So it's important to know who's nuking you.
Yes.
And there's a movie that presents the same scenario. What is it? A House of Dynamite. House of where one nuke could destroy the entire world. Yes. So, and we are in a position where we made progress. In the early 60s, each side had 6,000 warheads. And we managed through decades of arms control talks to knock it down to 1,700 by more than 70%.
Yeah, well, that was sanity actually raising its ugly head, because nuclear proliferation benefits no one, of course. But people are trying to arm themselves. Many countries have already, and there's a big to-do about Iran trying to become nuclear capable, and probably going to be wars fought over whether or not they can, in the coming decade. And these types of things are have to be managed by people that have uh, balanced personalities, that can also think that, gee, if we destroy all of North Korea, that might be a bad thing too. We don't want to do that because it's not human.
Well, also, it's not always people helping with the decisions, because AI is becoming
Another
a big.
variable.
That's one more reason that the nuclear scientists moved that doomsday clock up, because it's the Skynet problem.
Right. Yeah.
And what's crazy is, so Terminator, the plot of Terminator is that a set of computers of AI becomes conscious, and when it starts thinking for itself, it thinks, well, humans are the problem, and decides to wipe out humanity. That is what kicks off Terminator.
Right.
And that Terminator is a 40-year-old movie now.
Yeah, and it seemed like a reasonable decision for an AI to make.
Well, AI now there's a thing called Moltbook, which is, it's Facebook for AIs. 32,000 AI agents are now chatting with each other on Facebook for AIs, no humans allowed, which is fucking crazy. And AI isn't even conscious yet. AI behaves as if it's conscious because it was trained on humans who are conscious. Yeah. But what's crazy is that Terminator came out in the mid-'80s, and it's 40 years later, and it's still reasonable people, experts in the field, say it's still a reasonable fear, that the plot of this dumb sci-fi movie is a reasonable fear. There's a thing called P-Doom among AI experts. P-Doom is somebody asks you, the AI expert, what do you think the probability is as a percentage between 0% and 100% that AI leads to the extinction of humanity? And most people in the field of AI put P-Doom at about 15%, which is your same odds if you play Russian roulette.
Oof.
One bullet out of 6 chambers is roughly the risk of AI killing all of us, according to AI experts.
Well, that's making it real. I wouldn't play Russian roulette.
No.
So I don't think that this is something that we can emphasize too much and make people fear too much. But the thing about fear is that you can master it. You not necessarily by ignoring it or pushing it down, but by saying, I'm going to have courage in the face of it. And by having courage in the face of it, it means you speak up when someone is saying, we should destroy another country. We should have the ability to blow up half the world or something like that. Have the courage to say no, because the human race is one race, and it is not something that we can parcel out and say good and bad based on ethnicity, religion, color, whatever you want to divide people up into. No, it's one, and a machine can turn on, they will look at us as all the same. So stick together.
There's so much stuff that you can speak out about that there's an overload.
Yes.
Like here in LA, we had a couple huge fires that destroyed 12,000 homes. That was 13 months ago. Only 6 homes, 7 have been completed now, reconstruction. So people are speaking out, including Trump, saying, well, it's going too slowly. And so do you speak out on that? Or do you is that where your outrage should go? Or should you be like, are we really going to rebuild the same way because these fires, they destroyed more homes than ever, but we've had similar fires every 10, 15 years in LA, which is, a desert. We stole the water from Central California to make LA livable.
Right.
But we get devastating fires periodically that destroy thousands of homes. Should we really build everything as fast as possible, or should we be taking the time to see if we can build in a way that not everything will be destroyed? So like, you don't even know where to put your outrage.
Yes, and it could be numbing that there's so much outrage that you become attuned to taking care of yourself and not worrying about anyone else or anything else, because it's just overwhelming. But we have each other to support each other, and by talking to one another and realizing we're not alone in this, we have to have the ability to speak out, speak up, because right now one of the biggest dangers of all the dangers is the loss of our democracy to tyranny, to fascism, to to people who do not value the rights of the average citizen, but those that are in are valued, and those that are out have to show me your papers to see whether or not you belong or you're allowed to walk the streets.
If you spend enough time on X, you will hear right-wingers say, we are a republic, not a democracy, which isn't true. You can be a republic and a democracy, which we are.
Right.
But what they mean
Representative democracy.
When they say that, they mean, fuck you, not everybody's vote should count, but we have a general election in less than 9 months. We have primaries coming up as soon as next month in various states across the country. And we can be hopeful that it might lead to some positive change. There is quite a bit of outrage that Trump is doing very little of what he was elected to do.
Right. The economy's stupid.
Yeah.
So thanks very much, Rick. And I really appreciate your contributions this week. And I hope to see you next week as well.
Yeah. Well, I'll be here.
Okay.
Thank you for having me.
Okay. And I'm just going to say that we're going to keep speaking up and speaking out, because as citizens, as Rick pointed out, you can vote. And you can use your vote to throw the bums out. The people that are doing this are hurting the economy. There are no jobs, and people are prices are still going up. These are things that are continuing to happen to the general public, to the average American, and they're telling you lies about it. They're blaming people that are not to blame about it. So these are the types of things that we have to speak up on and elect people who are going to tell you the truth and value the values of the American citizens, the citizens of the United States, as this country was founded upon, which we have a Statue of Liberty that says, give us your tired, your poor, your huddled masses. What's going to happen to that Statue of Liberty if we continue to act like people who come to this country based on the promise that they can live a better life are now turned away and go back to their inhabitable land that they came from, where they were afraid of gangs and warfare, and we not taking them in anymore? What does that say about us? Come on, America, we are better than that. And when we say America, we are America North and South and everything in between. These are people that are with us and part of us, and they're not different. They're the same. They have the same wants and desires and needs that everyone else has. And so we stop pointing the finger at others, because there's always more fingers pointing back at yourself when you do. So thank you for watching the show, and we will talk to you next week with the next version of Roar 3, and keep raising your voice.